Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast. It is me, Karen Maloney, and for anyone on YouTube, hello. I'm on video as well. And this episode, honestly, I don't really know where it's going to go exactly, but I had a really intense week last week that kind of culminated or accumulated into a really intense weekend as well. And there was lots of moving parts, but it feels and it felt so much bigger than me. And I'm still not fully through the process. And I'm sure for many of you as well, you're experiencing, and I know I've spoken to a few friends, especially today, that up until now, I really just couldn't really process or think much about the whole experience. But from talking to some friends as well, there's so much going on. There is so much that our bodies are processing, that our nervous systems are processing, whether we're conscious or not. We are so, as a collective, overwhelmed. And last week, between, I think it was, the full moon, it was my time of the month, it was the 4/4 portal, if that's a thing. And also, it was the 3-year anniversary of the tragic passing of a friend of mine in Oaxaca, Mexico. And I'm back here in Oaxaca for her 3-year anniversary. And we had a celebration, as there's a celebration every year. And last year I couldn't be here for it. So, there's lots of moving parts as well in my physical, personal life, but it's so much bigger as well. And on Saturday, over the weekend, I was minding friends' dogs, and all of a sudden I just felt so unbelievably exhausted. I was just wiped. And, that's not like me usually, but unlike the person I used to be, I thought I was a robot. I thought I had to be a robot. I wouldn't give myself permission to feel, to rest, to take it easy, to go slow. Like that did not exist in my vocabulary. Whereas now I don't judge it, and I went and I lay down. And this was about midday. And I went and I lay down and I listened to a walking meditation from Dr. Joe Dispenza. It was about an hour and 20 minutes. I know I was lying down, I was walking nowhere, but I just decided I felt guided to put it in. And actually, it was a really interesting walking meditation that I chose. I'd never done it before, and it was kind of perfect. And in my mind's eye, I still followed and imagined myself walking in different parts. He has you stand and pause and then walk and all these things. Anyway, it was coming to the end of the meditation. I don't think it was the meditation per se, but just all of a sudden, I just felt this huge emotion moving through me. And I started bawling. I started crying. And the more I cried, the more I cried, the more I bawled, the more and more energy and sensation and emotion was moving through me. And it felt enormous. Like literally, it was those tears where I was crying until I'd no air left in me, like full exhalation, like, to the last breath, and then like full body grief, emotions, tears, pain, heartbreak, bawling, like full on full body, not just a few little tears coming out the side of my eyes. I mean, and I had an eye mask on for the meditation as well. I mean, it was sobbing. I mean, full on crying. And I think on and off, I played so the walking meditation was an hour and 20 minutes. I played it a second time. So that's what, nearly coming up on 3 hours. And then I was so exhausted because I bawled literally for hours, not consistently. I bawled for maybe an hour. Then I listened again. I was kind of fading in and out, resting, and then again I started bawling towards the end of the meditation again, and for ages. And then of course I was kind of exhausted and I just drifted off into a bit of a sleep. And like I think I got up out of the bed at about 5:30 in the evening. Like it was full on. And it was raining as well outside, which was really unusual. Or it started raining, and it was really unusual because it's not rainy season in Oaxaca, and it was coming down. It wasn't just a quick shower. I think it started maybe about 3-ish, and it rained until 7 or something like that. So because in between the meditations and that I heard this rain as well, I just stayed where I was. But what was coming to me as I was absolutely in convulsions and bawling, what came up for me, even now when I think of it again, I feel a bit teary-eyed. I was just thinking about the war and what's going on in the world and all these different levels. Obviously, my personal life and what I was living in that week as well. But what came to me more than anything was this sense, and it was collective. It was individual, but it was collective and it was huge. And it was this sense of self abuse, but not just self abuse, in treating ourselves bad or eating crappy foods when we want something else, or saying yes when we mean no. Like, these were all different forms of self abuse that might seem inconsequential, but they're actually huge anytime we live out of alignment. But it was bigger than that. It felt like this self abuse towards the divinity, towards the divine magic, the divine light that we are. And feeling that as a collective in how separated we have become, in how we have forgotten the essence of who we are to get to a level of, destruction. I had a conversation which got quite heated a couple of weeks ago with some friends in Mexico City that, they misunderstood something I said on how there's a divine aspect to everything. So by me saying that, they misinterpreted saying that I then said, well, then it's okay that war is happening and all these innocent children or whatever are being wiped out. And that is totally not what I said at all. That's not what I meant. And all of this was coming up again. And like I said to them in that evening, I'm like, no, I'm like, we've got so disconnected. That is not divine. That's all man. We have all the power of the divine, that we can go to this extreme of actually wiping each other out, inflicting real pain and hurt on other people. A Course in Miracles says the difference between us and the divine is the divine created us. We didn't create the divine, but we have been endowed with all of the gifts, all of the power, all of the magic of the divine to create anything we want, including these extremities. But it's not divine. It is actually the complete antithesis. Is that the word? The complete opposite of divine. It is the sign and the symbol and the call and the reflection of how disconnected we have got from the truth of who we are, that we can get to that level. And, I was saying to my friends back then, and I was feeling it again in this moment, it's like, how many more innocent lives do we need to see destroyed? How many more people, how many more bombs, how many more whatever do we need to experience? Do we need to witness as a humanity before the penny will drop, before we will wake the fuck up and change and come back to the truth of who we are? And again, people misunderstand me all the time when I talk about the light and the magic and the love and the divinity and the truth of who we are, because believe me, it is so difficult to choose that. People think it is, looking through life with rose-tinted glasses and that it's not realistic and, it could never be. But that's because they haven't gone through the experience of reconnecting to themselves. Because actually, it is the most difficult thing in the world. Well, it's not that it's difficult, it is really uncomfortable. Really, really, really uncomfortable. Because it takes us getting to a level of honesty within ourselves, a level of opening our heart again, a level of feeling all of our pain or shame or hurt or anger or whatever it is. It is getting to that level, seeing it, feeling it, knowing it, facing it within ourselves first, in order to rise, in order to see beyond all of it, in order to choose something different. We have to liberate it. We have to feel it. We have to see the distortion. We have to see the illusion and the what's the word I'm looking for? the separation in choosing fear, in choosing pain, in choosing hurt. Like choosing love is the harder path. It is so, and again, I don't want to use the word hard because it's not hard. It is possible for all of us. But is it uncomfortable? Damn right it is. That's why most people won't do it because it takes a level of getting honesty with ourselves. Because when we begin to get honest with ourselves, we see that nobody is innocent. We're like, I can hold my hand up and it brings me so much shame sometimes, things that I've done in my past that were unconscious, that were a hurt person. It is that true, hurt people hurt people. And I used to be a hurt person. I lived in survival. I lived in hypervigilance. I lived in fear that I unconsciously or sometimes consciously hurt people because I was hurting, because I didn't have the capacity within my nervous system to honor myself, to speak my truth, to be in uncomfortable situations, to stand up for myself, to choose to live from integrity, to make correct decisions at times. Like when we look back, we've all made mistakes. We've all made errors, but that makes us human. That doesn't have to be our identity, but it does take a level of radical responsibility within ourselves in order to move through that and come back to the truth of who we are. I believe in people. I believe in humanity. I believe anyone can change. But I know the work it takes. I know the level of discipline, the level of integrity, the level of honesty and moving through that uncomfortableness. And I'm not special. I'm not special. But again, it took for me to live those experiences in the first place, to make not great choices at times. And I'm not talking to the level of, inflicting or intentionally hurting other people. But yes, I have made stupid decisions. Yes, I have made mistakes like everyone else. Yes, I have unconsciously hurt others through my words, through my actions, through my deeds, because I didn't have the capacity, I didn't have the emotional bandwidth, I didn't have the maturity to deal with my own issues. And that's not a free pass. That's me holding my hands up and saying that because I've done the work and I've moved through it, I know it's possible for others as well. And that's the invitation. So I've kind of gone off on a tangent. So here I was, it was this level of self-abuse, but self-abuse of the divine part of ourselves, which again, when we remember the truth of who we are and the magnificence of who we are and what all of this is, beyond the fear, beyond the 3D. I've shared in a previous episode that this 3D reality is only 1%. It is only 1% of the totality. The other 99% is in the beyond, is in the energy, is in the consciousness, is in the intangible. And that's where we have to go to. That's why modalities and techniques to get us beyond ourselves, or meditation to sit with ourselves, to overcome all of the noise that we carry internally, are so powerful. Again, uncomfortable, yes. But the more we do it, the more we overcome these programs, these limitations, these limiting beliefs, these fears, the more we overcome them, the more we see that they're just a program, they're not the truth. And the more we remember our power, our light, our magnificence, and the more we connect to that magnificence, the more crazy this whole game and show looks, that it's like, how much more do we want to see? How much more are we waiting to experience before each of us individually and collectively overcome the fear? Because when you overcome yourself, when you no longer live from fear and programming and limited conditioning and survival, when you no longer live there, you are free. And you can see how no president or you see crazy, how crazy it is to be in this power, greed struggle. Like it's absolute insanity. But this was the part that came to me of, this level of self-abuse of the divine that we are, that we're each individually neglecting and negating and separated from within, is bringing us to this huge extreme of what's happening in the world right now. And I was bawling and bawling and bawling and bawling and bawling for hours because, and then an image from the movie Encanto came to me. Have you seen that movie? The kind of caricature, I don't know if it's Disney or Pixar or one of those, but it's a Colombian family and they have like gifts or magic. And this candle is like fading, and the little girl's trying to save the family and the candle and the magic and the house and all these different things. And it's not about the girl saving it, it's about all of them coming back to the bigger truth and the bigger picture of the light of their heart, of coherence, of connecting together again. And I saw that image as well of literally the scene nearly where the candle is, as the house is falling down at the very end and the candle is nearly gone out, of as a collective and as a humanity, that we have almost extinguished the light of who we are. And then I was bawling again and again and again, thinking of my nephews who are 2.5 years of age, who they're going to be living in, this kind of George Orwell horrible world where there's no food for anyone and it's complete survival and it's horrible. But again, I don't live in the fear and I don't live in the fear mongering and scaring, but I do live in reality. I do live in the consciousness of the choice point of where we're at. And I just see that point of losing the magic forever, or we get to reignite the magic. We get to remember the light. We get to choose that again. And I've spoken about this before. So again, the grief, what was moving through me, these images I was seeing, it was so intense. Like I was literally ripped apart. And then the immensity and the enormity of feeling alone, isolated, hopeless, like, what can I do? Here I am trying my freaking best, but it feels hopeless. It feels worthless. It feels like I cannot do it alone, and I cannot do it alone. I'm not saying I have to do it alone, but it feels so hopeless, even when, I'm trying, I'm sharing, I'm doing this, and it's kind of like, what's the freaking point? But the point is, if I allow myself to live in that question of what's the freaking point and just give up, well, that doesn't serve either. So I just allowed it to move through me. And then I had a sleep afterwards. Well, I drifted off into a sleep, which actually felt a bit like an ayahuasca ceremony for anyone who has done ayahuasca. Years and years ago, I think it was like 2018, I went through a major burnout. Huge, huge. I literally felt like I'll never forget the morning I got up. I got up at 6 a.m. I was trying to, be the perfect human and get up early and do the work and work out and, read a book and effort and hustle all day long and woo, gonna achieve. And I'll never forget this one morning I got up and I dragged myself out of bed at 6 a.m. The alarm went off. And I was just floored. I got to my laptop. I think I was turning it on to do a workout or something. And I had nothing. I had nothing in me, absolutely nothing left. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what this is. And I was like, right, I'll go back to bed for a 20-minute power nap. I went back to bed and I passed out, I think, for like 3 hours solid. Then I got up and I was all like, shit, the guilt tripping, going, oh my God, I felt a bit, I'm the worst human, I'm never going to succeed, or all these crazy stories. And then I tried again to get back into it and get on it. And I couldn't. And I had to go back to bed again. And this happened for a couple of weeks where I literally, I was spent. I had absolutely nothing in me. I felt like my brain just blew up. It just said, no more. My body, all of it just could not handle any more of me in survival, of me pushing, of me hustling, of me not listening to myself, of me living out of alignment, of me overriding all of my inner signals and wisdom and just pushing, 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 pushing. I had nothing left. And I remember in that moment as well, again, it was beautiful in one sense because for the first time, my mind was kind of quiet. I literally felt like my brain blew up into a billion pieces. And there was a bliss to that because I was like, wow, there's kind of nothing going on in my brain, which was not my brain. My brain went at a million miles an hour all day, every day. It never stopped. Day or night, when I was going to sleep, in bed, didn't matter. It did not stop. I lived as a high functioning, anxious person, not that I recognized it at the time. It was my normal. This is what I thought being a human meant. So, and that happened for weeks where I was literally sleeping all day, every day for weeks and all night. It was just like done. And I remember in that moment, I was like, okay, universe, God, source, whatever. I don't know what word I used back then, probably universe. I was like, okay, show me. I was like, clearly my way is not working. Look where it's got me. I'm like, show me if there's another way. Show me what I'm meant to do. And that's when I, started becoming more disciplined in my inner work, in really cultivating and getting to know myself on a whole other level beyond the 3D, beyond what society says, beyond the job and the role and the titles and the doing, beyond all of that, which was a process I had started, but this was really very different. So then on Saturday, this kind of afterglow of all the crying and kind of falling into a sleep, but it wasn't a sleep. I felt a sense of, again, my brain just kind of blew up. It was like I didn't even want to think of anything. And I remembered the sensation that I felt in many ayahuasca ceremonies of melting, of just absolutely melting into nothing. Anyone who's done ayahuasca, maybe you have a sense of that, maybe you don't, because everyone's experience is different. But I've definitely felt it a couple of times in ayahuasca ceremonies where I just was like, I felt like I melted. Like, I don't know how my face was looking in that moment in the ceremonies, but I felt like it was all distorted and literally melted. I don't think that's what was happening in the physical, but that's what it felt like. And that's what it felt on Saturday as well, after this bout of crying and what I was going through. Again, felt like a gentler blow up of my brain and this sense of melting. I was like, I just don't want to think anymore. I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to overanalyze anymore. I just want to melt into the beingness, melt into the magic, melt into the divinity, just melt into being, the isness. That is just all I wanted to do. And I kind of blissed out in that for a while because, again, what was moving through me was so overwhelming, so like overbearing, so huge. And there's a beauty in that depth of feeling. And then the sense of like the hopelessness or like, what the hell can I do alone? It's like, I can't do anything alone. We have to rope together, but I have to start alone. And, that's what I'm doing and I've been doing for years. But this melting just into the beingness. And then I had a memory or a reminder again that came up recently in a course that I was doing from Sophie McLean, which I definitely recommend. She has a very linear way of deconstructing the ego character and consciously creating a character for the divine essence of who we are, each of us individually, which is kind of different. I'll leave the link. She's actually starting a new course on the 11th of April. I highly recommend it. It's 10 weeks. She's doing it for free because this is her life's work and mission to just help as many people as possible. And what came up for me through her course as well, in part of the gift that I'm here to help humanity and myself, is to help us remember and embody and live as the magic that we are in human form again, which is not disconnected, is not crazy, is not away with the fairies. It's actually deeply, deeply grounded, sacred, high integrity, radical responsibility work but it is the most beautiful, empowering thing we can do. So I was left with this kind of question of how do I help myself and how do I help others to reconnect to that magic again even more? And again, I'm still in a phase of kind of feeling limbo. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much I could do. I suppose maybe recording this podcast is a first step of moving through some of this energy again and feeling the weight of kind of feeling paralyzed of, oh, it's so overwhelming. I kind of don't know what to do or where to start. So that was what was coming up for me. But again, I'm going to reiterate it. We're in a choice point, and it's a choice point of consciousness. And again, as A Course in Miracles says, you're either in love or fear. You cannot be in both. We cannot be in both. We can flip a lot, but we have to fundamentally come back to our baseline. You have to start questioning, if you haven't already, what is all of this about? I've gone through huge existential crisis again over the last couple of weeks. What is it all about? If you purely fixate on the 3D, you're missing the whole point. You're missing the whole magic. You're missing the whole beauty. It gets to be amazing. It gets to be incredible. It gets to be magnificent because that is the truth of who we are. But that doesn't just land. It's not just going to open up for you. It requires you going deep within yourself to the depths of your own pain, your own shame, your own sadness, your own fear, your own whatever, to overcome it, to liberate that darkness, to release the light again, to literally, we are changing our frequency to vibe higher so you can see you're available for everything that is already there, but you can't see it because you've got blinkers on because you're living in fear. And I get it. There is lots to be fearful about. This is the work. This is why it's consistent. Me too. I have lots of fears. I'm moving through them all the time. But when you do it consistently, it changes. It shifts. You overcome yourself. You feel different. You're in a different reality, even though it's all here together at once, because it comes down to consciousness. And you have to get so radically responsible for your consciousness now, for your energy, for your choices, for what you're thinking about, for what you're saying. And when we do that, and yes, it's uncomfortable at first, but then you start to get it and you start to feel good. And that's how we shift as a humanity. And again, in through all of this, and with all of this questioning and seeing how do I move forward again with helping people remember and embody and live as the magic and magnificence that they are, this is a journey. This is something that's still unfolding for me because I don't know exactly how to translate it. And within all of this water come in again. Like, there is no such thing as coincidence. And this is coming in at a time for a reason. And I just see it. It's like the foundation to help all the ships rise in a tide. Yeah, I was shown this image of a dock and like, what's the quote about a rising tide brings all the ships or something like that? This is coming in as a way, as a vehicle, as a modality to literally elevate. Like I said, it's a frequency travel machine. With every single sip that we take, we're shifting so subtly into realigning more to the truth of who we are, because on a cellular level, it is clearing the distortion. And I know that sounds absolutely batshit crazy. And I know it sounds like, oh my God, she's just trying to sell something. But the only difference between us right now in this moment, if you haven't got it, is I'm no longer on the outside looking in, trying to figure out what this is. I am speaking to you from the inside out. I am speaking to you from the lived experience and trying to articulate, but language is so limited, just like trying to describe an ayahuasca ceremony. This is kind of the same. It has to be felt. It sounds so bonkers. I get it. I hear myself sometimes, but the lived experience I cannot deny. And neither can other people, and neither can the reflections I'm getting in the community, because it's not just about water. Hydrogen is the very first element in the universe. It was the first thing after the Big Bang that created and feeds and gives life and light and energy to the sun and the stars. Without it, the sun and the stars and the world wouldn't exist. And this is what we are reconnecting in our body, switching on the divine light again, giving electricity, giving voltage. And believe me, you feel it. And it's not just the physical benefits, it is returning us to our original source frequency and blueprint. And again, I know that sounds batshit crazy. I know it sounds like, how could that be? But these are the few words that are the only way at the moment that I have to describe it, because it's not just an ordinary thing. Or as I keep saying, I say that and I'm like, it's not just an ordinary thing. But then I'm like, no, it's actually the most ordinary thing in the world. But we've made it seem extraordinary and kind of unbelievable. And there has been a technological piece that it was difficult to capture hydrogen because it is the smallest, most abundant molecule in the universe. It's a gas, it dissipates, it's everywhere. Now we have technology to capture it, to infuse it into a liquid that we get to drink. So it comes into our body, it cleans, it acts like a master regulator and a master cleaner and a master bin man and hoover, clearing what's not meant to be there. So the divine blueprint, the divine light, the divine essence, the divine messengers, and the divine energy and voltage that is in our body, the divine wisdom, the innate intelligence that is there, that is always there, is reawakened, is reactivated naturally because the distortion is cleared. Hydrogen goes in and cleans out. It doesn't stay in the body. Again, it moves through and it dissipates. It goes back to the air. And again, I know it sounds so crazy, but it's like anything. It's the same with plant medicines or breath work, somatic breath work journeys. To describe them, they sound crazy. You cannot understand what they are until you do it, until you take action, until you have the lived experience, until you have the felt sensation and shift in your body. Then you get it. Then you're like, oh. Until then, it just sounds batshit crazy. And this is all I've got at the moment. This is all I've got. This is what something that can tether us all together, that is so much easier than anything else to help us elevate, to help us return, to help us come back to our original frequency and baseline of knowing more and living more from the divine essence, the magnificence, the light, the magic, the love that we are. And if you haven't heard about the truth of who we are before, I invite you to read ancient texts, listen to people who have had near-death experiences. Like there's so much information out there. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, like there's so many scientists, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, Wayne Dyer, like so many people, Gabrielle Bernstein. The ancient wisdom is there. We cannot deny it anymore. We cannot keep separating ourselves from the truth, because if we do, it's lights out. And I don't necessarily mean lights out as we're all extinct. That could be possible, but I believe it'll be lights out as in that consciousness will be lost, suppressed for another God knows how many 100 years, and it'll be an absolute shit show we're left to live in. And again, I certainly don't want that for my nephews. So I think it takes each of us that radical level of responsibility in choosing again and living according to love and truth, and no longer accepting, like putting up with different things. No, that doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve the collective. So that was a bit of ranting. That's a bit of what's moving through me. these last few days and weeks and existential crises and tears and yeah, so let me know what's been moving for you. I'm going to leave the link to Sophie McLean's course if you feel called to join her. Again, I highly recommend it to see again. Her work and what she has created is so powerful as well because it helps us see the whole character and show that we have created for a reason as a protection mechanism, but it's all made up. And she's a really great way to help you see that within your own life so you can expand again and connect back to the truth of who you are, who we all are, and this divine gift that we have. So I'll leave the link. Message me, let me know what's moving for you. Again, if anyone feels called to this frequency shifting device, send me a message. Again, it's so much more than product or a sale. It's, as Brené Brown says, I'm just the mouthpiece. I'm an invitate, and I'm an inviter. I'm an experimenter. And if you're not in the arena with me, we're never gonna understand each other because we're coming from two different levels of consciousness. Whereas if we're in the arena together, if we're doing it together, well, then we have more of an understanding and the baseline of what this is individually and as a collective. So that's it. Maybe you got something from that. Maybe it's helped you in your own journey as well. Let me know. And a question I just leave you with. It's even like indigenous cultures and shamans would ask if someone was sick within the tribe. The first questions they'd ask is, when did you stop believing in magic? When did you stop dancing? When did you stop sitting in silence? And there was another question. So I'll leave you maybe with those questions. And how can you reconnect to the magic that you are, the magnificence that you are? How can you allow that to move through you in a day-to-day basis? What do you need to overcome, to feel, to release, to let go of within yourself to reconnect to that truth and essence? I'll leave you to ponder that. Talk to you soon. Bye.